In the time of Indian history, the Nanda dynasty emerges as the fifth ruling dynasty of Magadha during the tumultuous times of the 4th and possibly 5th centuries BCE. Their ascent to power marked a significant shift in the political landscape of northern India. The Nandas seized control from the preceding Shayasanaga dynasty, which had held sway in eastern India. Under their rule, the Nandas extended their dominion to encompass a substantial portion of northern India. Although historical sources vary in their accounts of the Nanda kings' names and the duration of their rule, it is generally believed, based on Buddhist records like the Mahavamsa, that their reign spanned from around 345 to 322 BCE. Some theories, however, suggest that their rule might have commenced even earlier, in the 5th century BCE. Building on the achievements of their Haryanka and Shayasanaga predecessors, the Nandas established a more centralized system of governance. They are credited with amassing immense wealth, possibly through the introduction of new currency and taxation methods. However, historical texts also portray the Nandas as unpopular rulers among their subjects. This unpopularity stemmed from their lowly birth, oppressive taxation policies, and general misconduct. The downfall of the Nanda dynasty came at the hands of Chandragupta Maurya, the visionary founder of the Maurya Empire, and his mentor Chanakya. Chandragupta's rise to power was a turning point in the course of Indian history. Notably, in the accounts of ancient Greco-Roman writers like Diodorus and Curtius, the Nanda kingdom was described as a formidable military power. During Alexander the Great's invasion of Punjab from 327 to 325 BCE, this powerful kingdom presented a significant obstacle. The prospect of waging war against it, combined with the weariness of Alexander's troops after nearly a decade of campaigns, triggered a mutiny that ultimately halted the Greek conqueror's Indian expedition. The origin of the Nanda dynasty has sparked much debate and intrigue. Both Indian and Greco-Roman traditions portray the dynasty's founder as being of humble birth. According to Diodorus, Porus informed Alexander that the first Nanda king was believed to be the son of a barber, who had, through treacherous means, risen to power. The Jain tradition, as documented in the Avashyaka Sutra and Parishta Pavan, supports these accounts, emphasizing that the founder was indeed the son of a barber. The Puranas, on the other hand, claim a different lineage for the Nandas, suggesting that Mahapadma, the dynasty's founder, was the son of the Shayasanaga king Mahanandin. However, even in the Puranic accounts, the Nanda's lowly birth is hinted at, as it is mentioned that Mahapadma's mother belonged to the Shudra class, the lowest caste in the Varna system. Intriguingly, the Buddhist tradition refers to the Nandas as of unknown lineage, Anata Kula, adding another layer of mystery to their origin. According to the Mahavamsa, the dynasty's founder, Ugrasena, started as an ordinary man from the frontier, falling into the clutches of a band of robbers, only to later become their leader. He subsequently ousted the sons of the Shayasanaga king Kalashoka. The ancient India bear witness to the reign of the enigmatic Nanda dynasty, but historical records from that era are marked by uncertainty and divergence. Various ancient sources provide conflicting accounts of the Nanda rule, making it challenging to ascertain their precise regnal period. The Matsya Purana, for instance, attributes a staggering 88 years to the rule of the first Nanda king alone. In contrast, some manuscripts of the Vayu Purana contend that the entirety of the Nanda rule spanned a mere 40 years. The 16th century Buddhist scholar Taranatha, however, assigns a more conservative 29 years to the Nandas. Pinpointing exact dates for the Nanda dynasty and other early Magadha dynasties proves to be a formidable task for historians. Scholars like Irfan Habib and Vivekanand Jha place the Nanda rule between approximately 344 and 322 BCE, relying on the Sri Lankan Buddhist tradition, which claims that the Nandas held power for 22 years. Historian Upinder Singh, on the other hand, places the Nanda reign from 364–345 BCE to 324 BCE, drawing on the assumption that Gautama Buddha passed away around 486 BCE. Another theory rooted in astronomical calculations posits that the first Nanda king ascended the throne in 424 BCE. Proponents of this theory also interpret the Hathigumpha inscription as a reference to the flourishing of Nandaraja, the Nanda king, in the 103rd year of the Mahavira era, which aligns with 424 BCE. Intriguingly, the 14th century Jain writer Meritunga offers a unique perspective, According to his Vichara Shrini, King Chandra Pradyota of Avanti passed away on the same night as the Jain leader Mahavira. His son Palaka succeeded him, reigning for 60 years. Subsequently, the Nandas emerged in Pataliputra, capturing the Avanti capital Ujjayini. This Nanda rule, spanning 9 kings, lasted for a remarkable 155 years before the Mauryas assumed power. According to the Shvetambara Jain tradition, Mahavira's demise in 527 BCE implies that the Nanda dynasty, as per Meritunga's account, ruled from 467 BC to 312 BCE. The Nanda dynasty remains an enigmatic chapter in India's ancient history, shrouded in ambiguity and marked by diverse accounts. While their precise regnal period may elude us, the Nanda's influence on the course of Indian history is undeniable. The Nanda dynasty cast a wide net of influence, with their capital nestled in the heart of Magadha, near present-day Patna. Historical accounts, including those from Buddhist and Jain traditions, as well as the Sanskrit play Mudrarakshasa, all point to Pataliputra as their capital. Even Greek sources, such as Megasthenes from around 300 BCE, affirm that Pataliputra, referred to as Palabotra in Greek, was situated in the territory of the Prasii, further cementing it as the Nanda stronghold. The Nanda Empire's reach extended far and wide, encompassing regions from modern-day Punjab in the west to Odisha in the east. This expansive territory included the Ganges Valley, parts of Kalinga, and likely the Avanti region in central India, which later facilitated Chandragupta Maurya's conquest of western India, including present-day Gujarat. According to the Puranas, the Nanda king Mahapadma, with his relentless might, decimated the Kshatriya clans and secured unrivaled dominance. These Kshatriya clans included the Maithalas, Kashayas, Ikshvakus, Panchalas, Sharasenas, Kurus, Hayayas, Vishotras, Kalingas, and Ashmakas. The Maithala region, perched to the north of Magadha and bordering present-day Nepal and northern Bihar, had previously fallen under Magadhan control during the reign of King Ajatashatru. The Nandas likely subdued local chieftains, who might have retained a semblance of autonomy. The Kashayas, residents of the area around Kashi, Varanasi today, were under Shayasanaga influence as indicated by a Shayasanaga prince's governance of Kashi. The Nandas might have wrested control from a successor of the Shayasanaga prince. The Ikshvakus governed the historical Kosala region of present-day Uttar Pradesh and had confronted the Magadha kingdom during Ajatashatru's rule. After Viradaka, their history becomes somewhat obscure. A passage in the 11th century story collection Kathsaritsagra hints at the presence of a Nanda camp in the Ayodhya town of the Kosala region, implying a Nanda military campaign in Kosala. The Panchalas occupied the Ganges Valley northwest of the Kosala region. Records of their conflict with Magadha monarchs before the Nanda era are absent, suggesting subjugation by the Nandas. According to Greek accounts, Alexander anticipated encountering King Agrams, identified as a Nanda king, if he ventured eastward from Punjab. This suggests that Nanda territory extended up to the Ganges River in modern-day western Uttar Pradesh. The Sharasenas reigned over the area surrounding Mathura. Greek accounts indicate their subordination to the king of the Prasii, presumably the Nanda king. The Kuru territory, home to the sacred site of Kurukshetra, lay west of the Panchala region. Greek records imply that the king of Gangaridai and Prasii controlled this area, aligning with the Nanda conquest of the Kuru territory. The Hayayas governed the Narmada Valley in central India, centered around Mahishmati. Nanda control over this region appears plausible, considering the precedent set by their predecessors, the Shayasanagas, who subdued the rulers of Avanti in central India. According to the Puranas, the Vishotras, closely associated with the Hayayas, seem to have lost sovereignty before the rise of the Pradyota dynasty in Avanti, predating the Nandas and Shayasanagas. Nevertheless, a Puranic passage suggests the contemporaneity of the Vishotras with the Shayasanagas. The Nandas may have defeated a Vishotra ruler during their expansion. The Kalingas occupied the coastal territory in present-day Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. The Hathigumpha inscription by King Caravella in the 1st or 2nd century BCE mentions Nanda Raja, the Nanda king, digging a canal in Kalinga, cementing Nanda control of the region. The Ashmakas ruled the Godavari Valley in the Deccan region. While there is evidence linking the Nandas to the region around Nanded in this area, concrete proof of Nanda rule south of the Vindhya range remains elusive. Some inscriptions from the Kuntala region, North Mysore, suggest Nanda rule, which included parts of present-day Karnataka in southern India. However, these inscriptions, dating to around 1200 CE in the time of the Nanda Dynasty, India witnessed the intrusion of the legendary Alexander the Great. At this juncture, Agrams or Zandrames, typically identified as the last Nanda king, Dona Nanda by modern historians, held the reins of power. In the summer of 326 BCE, Alexander's tireless army reached the Beas River, known as Hyphasis in Greek, marking the edge of Nanda territory. The Nanda military was described in various accounts, with numbers varying greatly. According to Curtius, Agrams commanded an army comprising 200,000 infantry, 20,000 cavalry, 3,000 elephants, and 2,004 horse chariots. Diodorus mentioned 4,000 elephants. Plutarch, though, took these numbers to a different level. He envisioned a force of 200,000 infantry, 80,000 cavalry, 6,000 elephants, and 8,000 chariots. Some suggest these figures might have been inflated by the local Indian populace, motivated to mislead the invaders. Despite the grandeur of the Nanda forces, they never had the chance to lock horns with Alexander. The Greek conqueror's troops mutinied at the Beas River, adamantly refusing to venture further east. The seeds of this revolt had been sown as early as 330 BCE, when Alexander's soldiers first yearned to return home, and the arduous battles they faced in northwestern India only served to deepen their despair. Faced with mutiny on the brink of a face-off with the Nanda army, Alexander was compelled to withdraw from India. The Nanda administration remains largely veiled in historical obscurity. The Puranas depict the Nanda monarch as an ekarat or single ruler, suggesting a centralized monarchy rather than a conglomeration of semi-autonomous feudal states. On the other hand, Greek accounts hint at a more federated system. Arrian, for instance, notes that the region beyond the Beas River was governed by the aristocracy, who exercised their authority with justice and moderation. While the Greek sources separately mention the Gangaridai and the Prasii, they imply a shared sovereign. Some historians theorize that while the Nandas maintained centralized control over their core territories in present-day Bihar and Uttar Pradesh, they allowed substantial autonomy in the frontier regions of their empire. Legends also suggest that Chandragupta, who succeeded the Nandas, initially struggled to conquer their core territories but found success when gradually expanding into their frontiers. The prosperity and political success of the Magadha kingdom, including the Nanda dynasty, have been attributed to a combination of factors. Pataliputra, their capital, was naturally shielded by its location at the confluence of the Ganges and Sun rivers. This strategic positioning facilitated trade along major routes, and the region boasted fertile soil and abundant resources like timber and elephants. Some historians speculate that Magadha's comparative freedom from Brahmanical orthodoxy contributed to its political achievements, although this is difficult to corroborate. While earlier theories suggested Magadha's monopoly on iron ore mines as a key factor, recent scholarship disputes this, as iron mining in the region began much later. However, the adjacent Chota Nagpur plateau, rich in minerals and raw materials, likely bolstered Magadha's strength. Jain tradition attributes Kalpaka as the minister of the first Nanda king, who initially assumed the role reluctantly but later advocated an aggressive expansionist policy. Jain texts imply that ministerial positions in the Nanda Empire were hereditary, with positions often offered to the sons of the preceding ministers. According to the Brihatkatha tradition, under Nanda rule, Pataliputra not only flourished as a center of material prosperity but also as a hub of learning. This tradition mentions renowned grammarians such as Varsha, Upavarsha, Panini, Katyayana, Vararuchi, and Vyadi living during the Nanda period. While much of this account may be folklore, it is plausible that some grammarians preceding Patanjali indeed lived during the Nanda era. Historical accounts abound with references to the immense wealth of the Nandas. The Mahavamsa mentions the last Nanda king as a collector of treasures, amassing riches equivalent to 80 kotis, or 800 million. He concealed these treasures in the bed of the Ganges River and further augmented his wealth through taxes on various goods, including skins, gums, trees, and stones. Tamil poet Mamulana's verse speaks of the untold wealth of the Nandas, which was eventually submerged by the Ganges floods, possibly indicating the hiding of this wealth in the river's waters. Chinese traveler Xuanzang, in the 7th century, alludes to the 5 treasures of King Nanda's 7 precious substances. Even the Greek writer Xenophon, in his Cyropaedia from the 4th century BCE, describes the wealth of the Indian king and their aspirations to mediate in the disputes of West Asian kingdoms. While Xenophon's work pertains to events from the 6th century BCE, within the Nanda Empire, a tapestry of religious beliefs flourished. The populace practiced Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Interestingly, both the Nandas and their successors, the Mauryas, were known to be patrons of religions originating in the Greater Magadha region: Jainism, Ajivikism, and Buddhism. Notably, these rulers refrained from coercing their subjects to convert to other faiths, and no evidence suggests religious discrimination during their reign. Before the Nanda era, Vedic Brahmanism enjoyed royal support from smaller kings who patronized Brahmin priests. However, the rise of the centralized Nanda and Maurya rule appears to have marginalized these local kings, resulting in the gradual waning of traditional Vedic society. The Jain tradition suggests that several Nanda ministers leaned towards Jainism. One telling incident is the story of Shekatala, a minister of the last Nanda king, whose son, Sthulabhadra, chose to forsake his father's position to become a Jain monk. In his stead, Sthulabhadra's brother, Shriyaka, assumed the ministerial post. The Nanda era remains an enigma with limited historical references. One mention can be found in Karavella's Hathagumfa inscription, which notes the construction of a canal during the 103rd year of the Nanda period. Al-Bayuni, on the other hand, records the use of the Sriharsha era in regions like Kannauj and Mathura. There was a substantial chronological gap between the Sriharsha era and the Vikrama era, which aligns with the attributes of the Nanda kings. In the 12th century Yedurava inscription of Chalukya king Vikramaditya VI, the Nanda era, along with the Vikram era and Shaka era, was mentioned but later abolished in favor of a new Chalukyan era. However, many scholars find the evidence too scarce to draw definitive conclusions. Unanimously, historical accounts agree that the last Nanda king was deeply unpopular among his subjects. Porus, as reported by Diodorus, described him as a man of worthless character who lacked the respect of his people due to his perceived lowly origins. Curtius concurred, stating that the Nanda king was despised by his subjects. Plutarch, quoting Androkotos, identified as Chandragupta, claimed that Alexander could have easily conquered Nanda's territory, the Gangaridai and Prasii, due to the Nanda king's widely recognized wickedness and lowly birth. The Sri Lankan Buddhist tradition placed blame on the Nandas for their greed and oppressive taxation. In Indian Puranas, the Nandas were labeled Adharmika, indicating that they did not adhere to the righteous norms of Dharma. The Nanda dynasty's reign of unpopularity eventually met its end at the hands of Chandragupta Maurya, with the guidance of his mentor and later minister, Chanakya. Some accounts even suggest that Chandragupta had familial ties to the Nandas, referring to him as a son of the genuine Nanda. A notable Buddhist text, the Milinda Ponha, recounts a fierce war between the Nanda general Bhadasala and Chandragupta, although it likely exaggerates the scale of the conflict. Nevertheless, this war marked the violent overthrow of the Nanda dynasty.